The idea, insight, or secret you need for massive impact is just moments away. It's time to claim your career crown. The podcast where business owners and entrepreneurs share the keys to the kingdom to help you open the vault to your greater success.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Petite to Queen's Claim Your Career Crown podcast. I'm your host, Lynn, and today I'm joined by our wonderful guest, LaQuincia Nichols. And today we're going to be talking about more than just a job, beyond your title. Who are you really? And discovering your core genius is key to living your best life. And if you get a ton of value out of this episode, I'd love to invite you to subscribe because it costs nothing to subscribe. Now, if you don't know LaQuincia, you are in for a treat. She is a certified life coach with over 20 years of leadership and operational experience at global corporations, with a proven track record helping colleagues achieve their professional goals. She noticed a reoccurring theme of uncertainty about career options, definitions of success beyond job titles, and individuals feeling like they were going through the motions really early in their careers. Now, LaQuincia guides clients through the process of identifying and acting on the goals that matter most to them, to get more out of life and step onto a path of success and fulfillment. When she's not working, Quincy, as she likes to be called, enjoys learning the latest dance crazes, reading, and spending time with family and friends. So I'm going to be casual about this. And Quincy, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Lynn. And I appreciate you offering up your platform. This is a great community, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of it. Thank you so much.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here. And, I think everyone would be really curious to sort of lean into who you are and what inspired you to get started and how you help people really find their core genius.
Absolutely. It's a story I think in my younger years, I had a little bit more shame around telling. And as I've matured, I've learned that all of the different things that I've experienced is really what helped me to get to the place where I am now. So I'm thankful for those experiences now. Currently, I reside in Arizona, in the U.S., and I'm originally a girl from Southern California. So living in a desert when I'm a beach girl by nature wasn't the plan. But here I am now, and it's been an excellent opportunity. I think like most people, I bought into the dream of, you go to high school, you go to college, you get a job, you do your 20 years and you retire with a watch, and that's life, right? And for me, I kept finding myself wanting to do things a different way. And my mother now has coined me her free spirit, but I never thought I was that when I was younger. I really thought I was someone who was like really sticking to what the plan was supposed to be. So with that, I tried that traditional route of going to a 4-year university and, having a major and doing all those things. But I found myself wanting to get into the workforce. I found myself wanting to have experiences really, really strong in early in life. And I was thankful enough, I think, just from the grooming and the demonstration that my parents, while not always the perfect family unit, the intention was always good. And so they instilled a really strong work ethic in me, and I say, good or bad, because sometimes that work ethic can work on your side, but sometimes it could stall you out. I learned how to really navigate a successful journey with, top companies without maybe all of the experience or the educational background traditionally that people will be looking for in certain roles. So for me, I learned quickly it was about your network and, did people like to work with you? Were you someone who were trainable, coachable? Were you a visionary? And all those things were natural to me. So it allowed for me to be successful, probably in a way to where people didn't think I would be. So that's kind of how I got here.
Well, that's a great story. And I really like the part that you shared about, there's, this strength that comes from, this this work ethic, but there is a shadow side. And everything, there's that yin and the yang, the good and the bad. So, this sort of really ties in the importance and what is the importance of asking people beyond your title, who are you really? So can you explain that?
Yes, because I found myself in that position where you're going out, you're meeting people, and after your name, you may ask, "Oh, well, what do you do?" Right? And what does that really mean? Like, what are we trying to learn about someone, or what are we trying to share from that? So I found myself challenged one day. Someone asked me a different question. They said, "What brings you joy?" And I was stunned for a moment because my first responses were everything that was related to my professional life, right? And so I had to stop and think, like, what really brings me joy? And as I continue to dig into that thought, it was being able to connect with people and have deeper and rich conversations with them about what are some of the principles that guide you and why do you make some of the decisions that you make? And, do you happen to see some of the patterns that you're repeating, or even myself? And so getting beyond the title allowed for me to have deeper connections with people. When I was just concerned, or when people were only asking me about my title, it left me kind of wondering, what do they want from me? Why do they want to know that? Well, how are they maybe anticipating leveraging that information? Is there some sort of intent, good or not maybe so good, but why do you want to know that second after knowing my name? So that was the question. And that's kind of what got me to this point.
Wow. I mean, that's really intriguing. And that question about what brings you joy, I think is so crucial to the whole idea of leaning into your core genius and living your best life.
Yeah.
So, my question is, when you're working with people and helping them to find that joy, what's the process you use? How do you go about doing this?
I'm honest with them. I let them know it's sometimes it's a long, dirty process. There are there are going to be moments to where I am your absolute champion and cheerleader, and I'm your champion and cheerleader all the time. But that doesn't always mean that the news is positive. But we deliver that in a way that it's supportive. We try to be honest and highlight sometimes the blind spots that we may have, right? And we're not always aware of that, and other people can see it. But sometimes the challenge is that the other people don't in your life, they value you and they know you for you, right? They know, oh, that's just how she is. But if this is something that is maybe not allowing for you to propel and not allowing for you to progress, then that's not doing you a favor. That's actually doing you a disservice, right? So for me, it's in my program, it's 6 months minimum commitment, right? Because you're going to go through 3 different phases. And the first phase is really about self-discovery. We have to really go back to what were the things, to the earlier point of, what brought you joy when you were younger? What were some of those habits that as a kid and, just organically that really help fuel your imagination, your creativity, all of those things, right? Not many of us grew up saying, hey, I want to be, some sort of research analyst, but maybe you demonstrated traits as a younger child that showed that maybe you had a more analytical mindset, but that doesn't mean that you're not creative as well. That doesn't mean that you don't have other hobbies and passions that are just as important as what you bring professionally. So first we need to dig into that. We need to understand what are some of the patterns that maybe you've been repeating, like I talked about earlier. What are some of those habits that you need to look into a little bit more, but also what are the things that you've been silently agreeing to that you don't want to be in agreement with anymore?
That is so good.
Right. Like we all go through those moments of, I thought I wanted this. My life was on track for this thing, right? I always tell people sometimes I thought I was going to, do the 4-year college, move to the DMV area, become a girl that works for government and live the life. And that is nothing that happens. The furthest east I made it was to Arizona. So not too far from California, right? But in that, I learned a lot. I learned that I have a passion for really trying to remove the obstacles out of people's way by addressing some of the elephants in the room. And that was where I would say, when I was in corporate, I would get myself in trouble because I would like to have the deeper conversation. And, there's an HR policy there. So you have to kind of tiptoe around that. But for my program, it's, rediscovering your purpose is the first step. right?
Yeah.
And we spend about 2 months working through that very, very closely. And then once we understand sort of, what you've been through and then where you're thinking you want to go, well, we have to get very, very clear on that. And developing that clarity does require sometimes the addition of habits, but also the removal, right? And that could also be people. Who are the people that are going to help push you and motivate you and also keep you disciplined to the new sort of identity that you're trying to step into, because you're going to be shedding some old things. And that's going to be uncomfortable for yourself and sometimes the people around you. And then in the latter part of the phase, we move into how do you fortify that, right? How do you really make sure that you don't find yourself moving back to some of the earlier behaviors or the circumstances, the interactions that weren't serving you before? How do you navigate those in a way with grace and ease and continue to position yourself to where you want to go for your future self?
Well, that sounds like a brilliant journey. I mean, very well thought out, very just transformative that people are going to be able to take.
Thank you.
So, one of the things that I'm really curious about is, why is seeing ourselves as more than just our job title a challenge for so many?
If I'm speaking very honestly with you, Lynn, I think it's easy, right? And it allows for us also to have a certain level of a block, right? There's a distance there. I do this thing, right? That should be enough. That may give you an idea of my educational background. It may give you my social economic background. Like, you get to know certain things about me, but sometimes you don't understand how I got to the position I'm in. May not always be the road that everyone else traveled. So I think when you can connect with people beyond just what they do, and maybe be a little bit more curious about the impact that they have, right? I can be this great corporate leader, but maybe I don't have a high level of integrity. Maybe I'm not doing things all the right way. And maybe there's a different corporate leader. Maybe they don't have the same fanfare. Maybe they don't have the same followership, but the impact that they make on the people around them is so great. People will move around, different departments, different companies, and also maintain relationships inside and outside of the company. So I think when you can get to impact, right, and how people are helping other people, that's where you find the difference, not just the title.
Yeah, that's true. So what holds people back from stepping into this discovery process of getting to the other side to live their best life?
Fear, right? Mindset. Could be various factors, right? Maybe they have not seen anyone do that type of transition in their close circle, right? So maybe they feel that's for other people who get to have those opportunities, but not me, right? It could be, I think a lot of it sometimes is, will the people around me think I'm losing my mind? Right? I'm walking away from maybe this job that pays me 6 figures, and I've got all the things, right? Like, you got the house, you got the job, the cars, the kids, the pets, and you're saying, you know what? I think I'm past that now. I don't want to do that. I've had that experience, but maybe I'm ready for a new chapter, right? Your corporate life, or the thing that you're doing now, is a simple, like, it's a one chapter in a whole life book, right? A whole chapters of books. So for me, it's, can you put an end to that chapter, and maybe you start introducing whatever that new thing that you want to bring into your life. So whether it's a new hobby, a new passion, maybe something that you do want to pivot into a career later on, you start prioritizing that, maybe by small amounts in the day, right? Because I think as women, sometimes we feel guilt around prioritizing ourselves, right? We feel
a lot of times,
a lot of the times, right?
Come on, let's be honest here. A lot of the time.
Because here's the thing, what I always tell people, sometimes you have to really be okay with knowing when you're saying yes to you, you're saying no to something else, right? And so I told people I went on a year of no. And that was simply because I had to say yes so much for, the first 35, 40 years of my life. I'm constantly saying yes, because that's what we're trained up to do as women. Right? I can have a whole conversation about being a firstborn daughter and how that also impacts, right? You're sort of second in command sometimes in your household. You're ready to take lead. So then we get in these positions of, either leadership, whether that's in your professional life or just your family life. And you're constantly saying yes. You're constantly making accommodations. You're constantly creating space for other people. But that space for yourself isn't as prioritized. For some reason, it doesn't feel as valuable. And what I try to tell women, I try to challenge them to say is, listen, that is your most prioritized time, because you really can. I mean, we've all heard it, right? You can't fill anyone else's bucket if your bucket is empty. And so when you continue to sort of run yourself on those fumes and you're giving and giving and giving to everyone else, I think of it two-part. Some of us love to be busy, right? We just love the feeling of being busy. But then also that distraction doesn't require for us to lean in to what are the areas where we may need to be improving in our own life, right? It's easy sometimes to say, oh, I got to worry about the kids. I got to worry about my spouse or husband. I have this big project that's due. That's easy to do, but it's harder to say, you know what? All those things are still going to be there. I can carve out 30 minutes, and that's whatever it is, right? Whether it's, intentional movement, or it's a quiet time, whether it's reading, maybe it's pottery, whatever that thing is that makes you feel like a whole person outside of what you do for your professional job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just totally struck a chord there, because I'm also the firstborn, child. And I was just like going, oh my gosh, it was like, whoa, reveal so much explained in that one statement. And I also agree that saying no with grace is really important. We all too often we say yes, or we offer up when it's not necessary, and we need to have that ability to take what I call a powerful pause and say, do I really want to offer this? Do I really want to say yes to this? And there's always a way to gracefully say no and exit stage left.
Absolutely.
So, because not everything is a yes. And there are also people who will take advantage when you constantly say yes. And then there's the whole people pleaser trap that you can fall into, or doormat trap, right?
Yep.
I mean, it just goes on. So that ability to pause and, take a few moments to consider, to say no.
Yeah.
This isn't a good time. Not now.
I try to coach people and tell them the way, if you want to, say push back politely, right, is just letting them know, hey, I appreciate you wanting to bring me in on this, or, thinking about me for this project. However, these are the priorities that I currently have that I'm already focused on. Let's think about who else maybe we can bring in, right? And I think if you can pause, to your point, but then also pivot and then suggest a different solution, that helps people. They almost forget that you didn't want to, you couldn't maybe help them out on the request, right? Because you did offer a different solution. But the people pleasing, it's very, very hard. And I think for some of us, we're so used to doing it, you don't even know you're doing it anymore, right? Like I tell myself sometimes, I had to learn to sit down, right? Just sit down for a moment. It's okay. Nothing's going to happen tragically if for 15 minutes I just say, you know what, I just want to be off my feet. It's okay. I don't always need to be doing something. I remember saying when I was young in my first job, and they said, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean, right? And so I think about that work ethic, and yes, it's great in that moment, but there's some trauma maybe that's following that, because I'm constantly thinking, what do I need to be doing if I just have time to sit? And I learned recently that resting is actively doing something. Yeah. Right. And
you're resetting your brain. Yep. You're giving yourself that opportunity to sort of get some clarity. It's absolutely critical. And you're actually going to come back fresher. The one other thing, and it's just a little bit of a tangent, but I'm still going to go there. This thought of, I want to, that was sort of on the line of the people pleasing and not saying no. And now I've lost my train of thought, because then I got into this other one. But, it's definitely that idea of this is not apologizing. So this is the key thing, is that, especially for women, and it triggered me when you said that I'm going to be late, and I cannot tell you how many times, you open a Zoom and somebody's a couple minutes late, and the first thing they're doing is apologizing. Right. And it's like, you're 2 minutes late. It's not like it's a big deal. I mean, and women especially, we will apologize for things that have absolutely no reason to be apologizing for. And it's a really, really bad habit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't reply to your email instantly.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't get back to you sooner. Like, what? You're getting back to them the same day or the next day. I mean, what the heck?
Mm-hmm.
So that's another piece that sort of goes into something that people are going to have to, when they're working through this and with you, is like, why am I doing this? Of course, we're socialized to. There's
Right.
that. But how do I break that habit?
And I think you hit on something that, to me, that I had to figure out for myself too. And I think a lot of us, we don't know how to healthily implement boundaries, right? And I think some of it is because we come from this sort of, I mean, we're in this phase now where people somewhat have instant access to you all the time, right? The expectation now is that I silence my phone so I don't get notifications, rather than maybe you don't send me a message at 6 a.m., right? But now we're such the way we communicate, it's on such a global level. Who has time to figure out time zones and where you may be, right? So now the onus is on me on how do I protect my peace? How do I protect my space? And I'm intentional about it, right? So I put my phone on do not disturb from like 5 a.m. Before 5 a.m. There's nothing that critical that anyone needs from me, right? If it's an emergency, call the fire department. And around 7 or 8 p.m. at night, if I don't have any client calls or anything like that, then it's family time, or it's just my quiet time. And I try to be very disciplined about that, because I also need that time to be quiet, to refresh, to recharge, to just communicate and be with my family, right? And just be still sometimes. Stillness really matters. And I think being always on and thinking that you have to constantly apologize, one of the things that happens from that is your apology means nothing, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you dole them out to everyone as sort of this just space filler. And then it makes me think, well, when something really does happen, do you feel sorry for that? Or, are you just saying it because it feels like that's what you should say in the moment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. And I definitely think that it blocks you from really tapping into that, core genius and living your best life.
Absolutely.
So that is a habit that you have to unlearn. So,
and it's really hard to unlearn some of these habits sometimes, Lynn, right? Because you've been doing them for so long, and we always talk about, well, unlearn it, but most of us, to unlearn, we have to fill that space with something else, right? So if I tell you don't do this, I gotta also tell you try this now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that it's one of those things that you just have to make that conscious effort. And when you catch yourself, and then I backspace, delete that. I'm not apologizing for something I don't need to apologize for.
No.
Absolutely. No. So I know we went off on a tangent, so thank you so much.
That's okay. This is what I love to talk about, so no tangent for me.
So what should our listeners do next about embracing their identity? They're really their core genius, their true self beyond work.
Yeah, I think beyond that, I always tell women, first, find a hobby, right? Find a hobby outside of anything that's associated with your profession, anything that's associated with your children, anything that's associated with your spouse, something that you like to do for you and that you will go and do independently, right? Because I think as women, we also like community. We like to do things with other people, which is great. But I think there's also there's a rigor that develops in you when you can also build that muscle and that mindset of, I can do hard things, but I can also do them independently sometimes, right? Doesn't mean we don't need community, but we have the ability to do it on our own. So I would say start with a hobby. That's the easiest way. For me, I remembered how much I love to dance, right? I had got so used to presenting this like overly professional persona that there was this fight going on, right? Of who I was at work and who I want to be at home. And I said, you know what? I enjoy dancing. And now, over the last couple of years, I dance every day. I'm not the best at every dance, right? I am struggling through some of them, but that movement, that joy, it makes me happy, right? I know I get up and I can take my dog out on a walk. That makes me happy. That feels good. And so as I started to do more and more things that made me feel good, that helped me raise the value that I saw in myself. And that allowed for me to have greater impact on others. That's it.
Yeah.
Start with a hobby.
Yeah. No, that's terrific advice. And I love your hobby of dancing. I mean, it's just, really leaning into your authentic self. I'm just feeling it right now. So
and listen, I do it like no one's watching, right? And sometimes that's great, and sometimes that's not. But if you see me on the dance floor, know that I'm probably having a really great time, and I invite you to come dance with me too.
Right. So, Quincy, is there anything you wish I'd asked you?
Yes. Here's what I'll share is to my ladies who are out there, and you're leading, right? Intentionally leading either your family, you're leading at work, wherever it may be. Do it with integrity, right? Do it in a way that is authentic to you. I know that sometimes it can be hard to reconcile the different identities and the different hats that you wear, but once you really nail down what's important to you, when you can figure out what your values are and align a life that aligns with those values, it really feels good. It's different, right? And you have to be willing to stand up for yourself. You have to be willing to communicate that. I think one of the things I learned the most was just speaking out loud what I wanted, right? Sometimes as women, we have a lot of thoughts in our head, but we don't know how to share them in a way that says, hey, I'm curious about something else. I also may be very fearful of going to do that thing. I would love somebody to support me. In real life, like, how do you have that conversation with your good friends? But I think you do that by demonstrating little by little every day. Hey, I'm actively and intentionally trying to change the way I show up, the way I impact others. And I hope that you go on this journey with me, and maybe that inspires something for you as well. But if not, that's okay, because as my mother told me, some people are just for a season, and that's okay too. Get what you can get from them, be great to them. But then, if life takes you in a different path, that's okay.
Yeah. Well, what a brilliant way to wrap up today. Oh my gosh, I got chills. So, Quincy, thank you so much for sharing more than just a job, beyond your title. Who are you really? I know that our listeners are going to want to find out more about where they can find and connect with you.
Yeah, so I would love for everyone to, check out my website. It's experience-coaching.com. There you have the option to also get a free download that I have. It is all about resolving conflict in a way with courage and with grace and with ease. And I think for a lot of us, it's just about how to start the conversation, right? If we can start the conversation, if we can understand what our intention is and what do we want to walk away from that conversation with, it gets a lot easier. And when you start addressing the elephants in the room and not avoiding them, it really helps to have dynamic and powerful relationships with the people around you.
Yeah, that's such a valuable gift. Thank you so much, Quincy.
It's my pleasure.
And thank you to all of our listeners today who tuned in. I'm so appreciative. Thank you for joining us, because this has been an amazing discussion. And Quincy, thank you again. This has been absolutely brilliant. And I am thrilled that you were here today.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm happy to come back anytime you want me.
What was your biggest takeaway from this episode? I would love to hear about it. It's important to share the things you love. If you loved this episode, a 5-star review really helps keep the podcast coming to you regularly. Also, if you want to get more sales strategies to grow your business, make sure you subscribe right now. If you want to get results even faster, I invite you to download my sales strategy checklist at petitetoqueen.com/checklist. This has been Lynn Whitbeck, host of Claim Your Career Crown. I'll see you next time.